Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties, episode 23 for season 4. My name is Lee. I am in Western Australia. This week I am joined by Zeev in Melbourne.
G'day.
And Zeev's cat, also in Melbourne.
G'day, meow. Righto.
She walked past the screen. She might periodically walk past.
Yeah,
Because, cats will do what they'll do.
exactly.
Tonight we're going to be talking about two particular things. We're going to be talking about the Trump's big announcement over the Afghanistan War. Apparently we're going to win it. Rah, yay us.
Another 4,000 troops.
Yeah, who knows how much it's going to cost and when it's going to happen, but apparently it's going to happen. We're also going to talk about the other thing that I can't remember. That was another thing. And
Australia Day Council.
Australia Day Council, that's right, yes. So the a number of councils, two councils in Melbourne, have come out saying that they are going to change their Australia Day celebrations or not have Australia Day celebrations. And of course, that causes a big fuss. And so we're going to talk about that. So let's we'll go with that one first. So it was initially the Yarra Council, and there was another one more in the last couple of days as well. They've both, let's be clear, very left-wing councils. So we're talking about like councils that actually have people who are part of the Socialist Alliance on the council. So it's like the Labor Party is the most right-wing party. It's like Labor and Greens and Independents and then the Socialist Alliance. That's in the Yarra Council. I suspect the other council is similar. And they have come out and said that they're going to no longer have Australia Day celebrations. They've removed the references to Australia Day. And then the federal government, being the very mature adult people, have said, well, then you can't have a citizenship thing either. So that's...
Citizenship ceremony.
Citizenship ceremony as part of, Australia Day celebrations. So, what are your thoughts, Eve?
Well, I mean, as I understand it, this is a tiff between the federal government and the local council about when to hold a citizenship ceremony and when to hold celebrations funded by the local council about Australia Day. And to be honest with you, on my list of priorities when I wake up in the morning, the first one is my local council spending money on Australia Day? I ask myself that question every day of the week. And if I don't get the right answer, then
it's very distressing for you, isn't it? Yes.
I call into Talkback Radio.
Yeah.
I write to the Herald Sun. I get very irate.
Yep.
And I talk about the downfall of this country that will happen if the local council...
The end of civilization. That comes.
Exactly.
Yes.
If the local council should happen to move the day over. But look, in all seriousness, I don't know whether... I know that there's both sides to this debate over when to hold Australia Day and when to celebrate. There's the people who think that Australia Day is this sacrosanct day, the 26th, and the others who are, because it was the day that Australia was first landed upon by the British, I think.
Yeah. And
on the other hand, then the Aboriginal rights groups people say that's a deeply offensive day. It was the day of the invasion and the like. And then the debate goes on from there. To be honest, I've kind of disassociated myself with the entire thing. And I think it's probably because I've become disassociated from government generally. I just don't care because I just see it as this celebration of what exactly? I mean, Australia's a lovely place to live in. It's a great society. It's wonderful. That deserves to be celebrated. But I don't know if we need this, the local council and the government of the day picking a particular day and saying, well, that's it. That's the sacrosanct day on which we must celebrate it. And I guess for that reason, I just don't care either way. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, so... Of course, the people with very little imagination for how to describe a situation call this virtue signaling, which is I don't think I've said it in this show, but certainly I've said it on my my Facebook page, which is Aussie Liberty, in my little dose of shameless self promotion. everything is virtue signaling. All humans virtue signal all the time. If you get upset about virtue signaling, you're virtue signaling about virtue signaling. Like, it's not to say humans virtue signal is like to say humans breathe or humans think or humans act. Like,
it's just another word for discussing morality and moral ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess virtue signaling is a criticism that I at the most suggests that these are very low order priorities that we're discussing. That there are high priorities out there. I think that would be
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, certainly the fact that virtue signaling as a criticism is, I think, the laziest form of criticism. Like it's just a cheap shot.
It could be, yeah.
Now, whether councils should be, making commentary on Australia. So I mean, actually, this is like David Leyonhjelm came out on his Facebook page. Senator David Leyonhjelm is a Libertarian senator for the Liberal Democrats. Came out on his Facebook page, taking a big swing at these councils about how they should just focus on the rubbish and blah blah blah. And I actually think I don't see a particular reason why councils shouldn't be talking about these things. I mean, this debate is an important debate. Like, I mean, I think I've made it clear on this show and in other places that I think that Australia Day does stand for a day of invasion. That it wasn't colonization, it was invasion. And people, but we can agree to people can agree to disagree. Like, definitely.
I'm with you on this. I just, I'm not especially. How would I put it? Fussed.
Sure. I'm not saying people should be fussed. But I think, if the notion, I mean, local councils. Okay, I'm an anarchist, so if there was no government, I would be happy with that.
Okay.
So, like, I'm not saying like governments need to exist, but like, I think if broadly speaking, if you want to have debates about things in the political realm, I'd rather them happen at a council level than at a federal level. So my
local
kind of beef,
is better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, I mean, when I've shared when this first came up, when Yarra Council first decided to not celebrate Australia Day, and of course all the conservatives in the Liberal Party came out swinging about how this is blah blah, un-Australian or whatever. I made a comment about it. I made a comment saying this is against federalism, and people will say, well, yeah, but it's not federalism. Councils are not, and they gave sort of a technical understanding of federalism, and that's true.
But it's actually not.
Conceptually, like, the notion of federalism is not just what are the exact boundaries of what governments do. It's the notion of devolution, of, governments closer to the people should make more decisions. And
exactly.
In that regard, I don't think the federal government has got any business telling anybody how they should be celebrating Australia Day. Now, it's one thing to say, so apparently the regulation is that citizenship ceremonies themselves should not be politicized. Fine, I'm okay with that. I'm not too bothered by that. But what my problem is with what's going on is that the federal government is getting pissy, and particularly certain ministers in the federal government are getting pissy because of what else is going on January 26th. So it's one thing to say we're not going to allow you to make a citizenship ceremony partisan or overtly religious or anything like that. And I'd say that's relatively, I'd say that's improper. Okay, fine. But the fact is, what they're doing is not just politicizing a ceremony. They're saying, we're not just going to have Australia Day at all. We're not even going to call it Australia Day. So the criticism is actually that they're not celebrating Australia Day in a way that people in the Liberal Party don't like. It's essentially, it's complaining that people haven't got the right thoughts. They're not sufficiently patriotic in their mind. So therefore, they're going to take, they're going to spit the dummy. The federal government are going to pick up the toys and take it away from them. I mean, it really is, I think, completely improper for federal ministers to be telling local councils what they can and can't do on January 26th. If those local councils just want to sit around and smoke bongs and sit with a barbecue and not mention anything about Australian settlement or colonization or invasion, that's that's none of their business. It's literally these hippies can do whatever they want. So I guess that's, like, in that regard, I think this is of some consequence. It's not consequential in the grand scheme of things. Like, in the grand sort of fabric of society, the world is not going to end because councillors do or do not make commentary. But like, I think in
Which
terms
is
of,
all I was trying to say. Really.
sure, yeah. And I think that's fair. But I think like from a libertarian perspective, as people who want to defend the notion of devolution of power, of devolution of responsibilities, I'd rather see local councils make these decisions than the federal government. And I think the issue is actually that the federal government is overstepping their boundaries. They shouldn't have. I don't think they have the right, as far as I'm aware, to tell people what is the correct way to celebrate a January 26.
Look, I mean, they may have the legal right to determine how and when citizenship ceremonies are to be held, and that's probably what they're doing there. That's all. They're just saying.
Well, no, because it goes further. Because from what I understand, this is not what the councils are doing. Is not specifically about citizenship ceremonies. It's about
this is a reaction. They are saying this is a reaction to that. That's all I mean. Yeah. They have legal powers about when, where to hold citizenship ceremonies, and they're exercising those legal powers as a response to what council is doing. Yeah. So you might say, well, look, what business is the federal government to make these decisions just because the local council has decided to not hold Australia Day celebrations? And that's a fair enough perspective, I think. Also because it seems to suggest a little bit of inconvenience to the local people becoming citizens. I mean, why should they suffer the inconvenience of driving to some other nearby town hall to have this ceremony conducted or something, or delayed? I don't know which will happen. Either way, it strikes me as a little petty. Anyway,
I'm actually kind of glad that they stood their ground, because last year, so in 2016, it was this year. So late last year or early this year, it must have been late last year. The Fremantle. So Fremantle is a city in Perth, or it's like a southern kind of suburb. It's sort of one of the major, sort of original locations of Europeans in Western Australia where they settled. It's a port. It's a pretty important area. And the city council there said, we're going to change the day that we celebrate Australia Day from January 26th to January 28th. So they were going to move it from the Thursday to the Saturday or something like that. And all the same idiotic MPs in the federal government came out swinging against them. And they backed down. And so I'm actually glad that Yarra and the other council, which escapes my mind, I don't think I've actually seen the name of it, I'm glad they stuck their guns, because I think this is an important thing, that if you believe in the principles that they say they are, and whether I agree with them or not, I think it's important they stick to what they're doing. And I think it's an appropriate thing to be talking about. Like, if you're going to have if you're going to talk about this whole idea that, I mean, really, like, I think if Alex Hawke or whoever was here, they'd say, yeah, well, we these debates are important, but not on Australia Day. Well, that's the whole, like, if you can't criticise a day on the day, then we're not talking about a secular holiday. We're talking about a religious holiday. You're saying, well, it's Ramadan. You can't criticise Muslims on Ramadan, or, like it's.
Well, this is the thing. Australia Day is a quasi-religious event for a lot of people,
especially for conservatives.
And that's why I said earlier that I'm kind of a little disassociated from the Invasion Day / Australia Day debate. I accept that it was an invasion, but I'm not particularly fussed about this idea of Australia Day in itself, just because I don't feel that I need to celebrate the fact that the Australian government is forcing our businesses to shut down on a particular day, because to be honest with you, I don't think that's cause for celebration. I just think that's damaging to the economy. That's all.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, if we all want to spend our own time in our own way on the weekend and say, gee, Australia's a pretty lovely little island, I'm really grateful to be here, I've got no issue with that.
Yeah. I mean, for all my own convictions about the nature of Australian colonisation, I think Australia Day is an okay day to exist. Like you. I think saying we live in a great place, like, just because we have a terrible history, doesn't mean we can't say, well, yeah, but mostly it's pretty good now, like in terms of
Yeah,
like, the lives we live,
most
and
people
even
yeah.
obviously Aboriginal people as a generally have a lower standard of living. There's challenges there, but even so, like for some Aboriginals, they're actually still living a lot better than they would have otherwise.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
And they have more
A lot
opportunities
of
than
them
they
are
ever would have
quite
had
well.
been. So.
Most people are quite well off. Most people are free to live their lives here in peace, and that's a great thing that deserves to be celebrated. It doesn't hold true of a lot of other places, and I think what the Conservatives get so upset about is the fact that fact in their minds goes unrecognised. We don't realise how good we have it here. Ergo, it's something that should be forced upon us. The state must celebrate it, and we must celebrate it in turn. If we don't do it on the 26th, then woe be to us, because we are abandoning our history, our society, and so on. And actually, the leftist councils may well think that this advances that agenda, because they think, well, if we cast Australia as a whole as this kind of abomination that should never be celebrated because it is a tool of the capitalist imperialist agenda, then that's one further step in the right direction for the socialist state, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, for the far left, for the far left socialists, that may actually be the thinking. Anyway.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think like a lot of things, the people who say, like, the nature of the speaker often makes people hostile. So the fact that it is lefty councils will trigger some conservatives, because that's just how the word works. People can be reactionary that way. But let's move on to talk about Afghanistan. So, as I heard said this week, the Afghanistan war has been going for so long that it could serve in its own war, but it's not legally allowed to have a drink yet. So, the Afghanistan war has been going for 16 years.
In the United States.
Yeah. And 17 years or whatever it is. And, no sign of it finishing, no sign of any victory. It's apparently Donald Trump has the idea that he's going to win it. He's going to win it by just saying, I'm going to win it. He made a big announcement at a speech at a military base in a couple of days ago. And he said, while he didn't say that there's going to be a blank check for American engagement. He just thinks, in the end, we will win. Wow, that's military strategy. Alexander the Great, looking down from wherever he is looking at saying, man, this guy's got what it takes to win. So, yes, what are our thoughts of the... we should say, like, this is the thing that Barack Obama, when he first became president, he brought in the surge because the Iraq War was the failure war, but the Afghanistan war was the right war to win, and so he had the surge, which of course didn't deliver at all either.
No. Well, I guess, I mean, the numbers at this stage are unclear, at least according to the BBC report that I'm looking at here. At this stage, it's around 4,000 additional troops over the 8,300 that are deployed in Afghanistan. So to give you a sense of perspective, I mean, back in 2011, there were 100,000 US troops in Afghanistan, and President Trump is proposing to increase the number to 12,000. You see, in 100,000 in 2011, and afterwards a drop down. And now the suggestion appears to be that with 12,000 troops, we can achieve what 100,000 troops under President Obama failed to do. And frankly, I think that would take an extraordinary military, economic, and political genius to achieve.
Especially since the country's got like 35 million people, so
yes,
I
think it's playing up for the cameras. It's nothing at all. It's no more and no less than a cynical polling move. People like the army. I want to be associated with the army. The army is good. I will be on television now talking about the army being good. putting in a trivial amount of troops that won't affect the outcome of this war in the least, but will give me a nice press conference. And I expect nothing from this at all.
Well, I mean,
That's what I think President Trump.
Sure. I mean, that's
as much as he has a real thought process. If he really, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Maybe he really thinks that 12,000 troops are going to do the job. I doubt it. I think this is media.
I don't think Donald Trump has many thoughts on anything except for what the last person talked to him, and it's probably not completely unconnected that just as he dumped Steve Bannon, who was supposedly more of a non-interventionist in the Trump White House, much more skeptical. He's replaced him with a general in addition to all the other generals he's got. I mean, Trump loves his generals, because he's a lover of strong men. So and
well, it lends him a sense of authority and credos and gravamen or sophistication, what have you, that he clearly lacks. By wrapping himself around the military and the flag, he can at least seem a little more sophisticated than he is.
I don't think it's even that deliberate. Like, I think he just, like when you've, like, in the times that he's praised foreign dictators and foreign regime, authoritarian regimes, it seems pretty clear from what I recall that it's actually just the notion of projecting strength. Like, he's the guy who makes the deals. He wants to be strong. He wants to project the notion of strength. And he respects those who project strength back. Like he's So like I mean, maybe there is someone. I mean, undoubtedly he has cynical kind of political minds in his administration. But like, I think from his own sort of personal view, like, I honestly don't think it's a cynical thing. I think he actually just likes winners and he likes strong people. And in his mind, generals fill that kind of role. And, well, unsurprisingly, they're
advising
him. And, like, they're going to be in favour of this war. I mean, to my knowledge, I don't think
general is not in favour of the war, then who is? Yeah.
Like, I mean, if anybody at the Pentagon was keen to withdraw from the Afghanistan war, I suspect they would have pulled out by now. So, obviously, the Pentagon believes... and those within it, and those who are likely to ascend the ranks in the Pentagon, are going to be in favour of continuing the war and winning this. Not that anybody... And this is the key problem, is what does it even mean to win? I mean...
Nobody knows anymore.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly...
Defeating the Taliban.
Well, yeah, but I mean, so Trump said in the speech that he doesn't want nation building. So at least that's one error that at least someone's learning a lesson about. But it's hard to understand, like, what the end result could possibly be. Because, I mean, the Taliban is not just purely a military force. There's a whole ideological aspect to it. You're a very conservative part of the world. So there's going to be a lot of people who are just inherently going to be interested in a more conservative government. And they're not going to be a fan of US puppets. So, like, there's no way you can actually defeat the Taliban just by shooting them. That's not how it works. That's not how the world works. So I just, I really don't understand where... And, well, I mean, the thing that I think it's...
Well, I don't think
they haven't actually revealed what the victory conditions are. I mean, that's... Like, if there was a victory condition they could state, they would state it. But the fact that they haven't probably means they don't have one.
Not one worth worrying about. I think this is just... an afterthought, just a passing press conference, a suggestion put to him, perhaps, as you say, by the strong men that he admires.
Yep.
And he's given them their wish, and he'll move on now to the next distraction.
Next round of golf.
Next round of golf, whatever moves him. But I think it's appalling, really, in a way that we have these advisors and strategists and generals and the like that must sincerely believe that the battle is not yet over, that the incentives in the political system are such that they are not willing to say, I mean, we've had a good long run, but it just hasn't worked. Let's withdraw. I mean, I think it's fair to say, I mean, even if we had the surge, we had the period under George Bush, 10 plus years of attempting to recast Afghanistan, and none of it has worked, and yet here we are once again on the cusp of yet another intervention, and apparently we're all just going to go along with it. I just don't understand it. It's crazy. And Australia, I know, it still has troops in Afghanistan. Isn't that just, I mean, what for? What good are they doing now at this point?
Well, I think it's, I mean, just trying to think of sort of the alternative perspective. I mean, I think some of it's going to be based on, well, okay, say you do withdraw, what then happens? Well, what happens is probably not going to be a fun thing for those involved. It's certainly going to, like, you can't imagine Hamid Karzai, who's the current president, as far as I can remember, is going to last much longer if the US withdraw. So I guess maybe part of it is just like perpetuating a bad status quo is worse than mixing it up and having a worse.
Well, let's consider that. Maybe that's worth considering. The United States should have a permanent military installation in Afghanistan to preserve the status quo. Okay, well, I mean, is that really a status quo that is worth preserving? And for whom is it worth preserving? And is that really what President Trump has put to the people at the moment? I don't think so. I don't think he said, guys, we need to permanently preserve the status quo. So, but to consider the argument, look, I haven't given it much thought. There is a, you might say, compelling argument there that if the country falls to the Taliban, etc., then that would be an appalling outcome. But the fact that Mr. Karzai has held on to power.
It's Ashraf Ghani is the current president of Afghanistan. Since September 2014 he became president. So yeah,
the fact that he has held on this far during the troop wind down with only 10,000 troops left suggests to me that the stability of the Afghan government depends more on its ability and willingness to ensure the loyalty of its own armed forces and of its own population than the troop presence right now of 10,000 troops. I think we're well past the point of this being a baby government, so to speak, that just can't get along without the United States.
Sure. I mean, having said that, it's true.
That said, it could fall tomorrow out of sheer incompetence and corruption. It could well. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like its fate lies in its own hands, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
And surely, I mean, that should be the position, shouldn't it? We can't just permanently intervene everywhere where there are bad governments in the hope that this might forestall other bad governments who are worse from arising. There are any number of countries in which the United States could intervene on that basis.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like a very good basis on which to intervene. It strikes me as a very weak rationale.
Oh, yeah, it's because it is. But, I mean, well, the nature of politics is risk averse. I mean, this is where, I guess, public choice theory comes into it, where you say, well, what's the benefit to a politician to a good outcome? Well, there's some benefit. You might get re-elected, but you don't get, you're not personally rewarded, really. The main thing you're watching out for is you don't want to lose. You don't want to have something go wrong. So, the emphasis is, you can, whatever you do, don't make a mistake. The status quo
is better in that sense.
So you think about, well, any number of policies where it's like, well, this would be improved if you did this, yes, but if you do this thing and it goes wrong, then you'll be in trouble. If you maintain this status quo, and it's a bad status quo, but you don't have anything go horribly wrong, well, then you still get to keep your job. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, as it quite often does, is politicians are risk averse, and they, because there's the possibility that things will go worse than they actually are. Well, that's any final thoughts just before we wrap it up?
No, I think we've covered everything, haven't we?
I think we have. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
And we'll be back again next week. Make sure you like and subscribe and share us and all those good and wonderful things. We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube, so you can check us out. Thanks very much for joining us.
What Lee said. Thank you.